Imagine Europe in the early 1800s. 5 cities, 5 rising empires, and in the shadows, 5 brothers preparing a plan no royal dynasty had ever dared to attempt. They owned no land, commanded no armies, held no official power, yet within a single generation, they would control the flow of money across an entire continent. How? Not through violence, not through political office, not through bureaucracy. In Frankfurt, Amschel Rothschild saw what kings could not, that the future would not belong to those who ruled territory, but to those who ruled credit. So he sent each of his sons into a different capital: London, Paris, Vienna, Naples, Frankfurt. From the outside, it looked like a simple family expansion, but in reality, it was the most important strategic move in the history of private finance. Because now Europe was connected, not by telegraphs, not by governments, but by a private network of couriers and messengers who could move information days, sometimes weeks, before the rest of the world even knew something had happened. And through this single advantage, the brothers reshaped wars, rescued collapsing nations, toppled empires, and built the world's first true financial machine. But here's the part no one talks about. The 5 brothers did not rise together. One gained power instantly. 2 struggled for years. 1 nearly lost everything. And 1 carried a secret that would haunt the entire dynasty. This is the real story behind Europe's first financial network. Not the legends, not the myths, but the decisions, sacrifices, and risks that transformed 5 young men into the most influential family of the 19th century. Welcome to Volume 2, The 5 Brothers. In the early 1800s, Europe was entering a dangerous new era. Old empires were weakening, new powers were rising, and every kingdom depended on one fragile thing: credit. Wars were no longer won by armies alone, but by those who could finance them. And in a small house in Frankfurt, Amschel Rothschild understood this better than any ruler alive. Knew a truth Europe refused to accept. The future would be decided by information. News traveled slowly, markets shifted unpredictably, and a single delayed message could bankrupt a nation. But what if certain people, certain families, could receive that information before anyone else? What if that advantage could change the outcome of an entire war? Mayer began to wonder. What if a family could move information faster than governments? What if danger could be seen early and opportunity captured before others even noticed? This idea became the seed of his plan. Instead of keeping his sons close, Mayer imagined them as 5 sentinels positioned across the continent. Each would build relationships, gather intelligence, and read the financial pulse of his city. London for trade, Paris for politics, Vienna for the empire, Naples for the south, Frankfurt for the center. But there was one reason Mayer never told anyone. A reason that would soon change the fate of one brother completely. Individually, these positions meant little. But together, if connected by speed and trust, they could form something Europe had never seen before. A private financial network, faster than any official system. And as Mayer quietly shaped this vision, he understood another truth. The 5 brothers would not rise equally. One would gain power instantly, another would struggle for years, and one wrong move could destroy everything. This was the beginning of the Rothschild strategy. When Mayer sent his sons across Europe, one of them stepped into a world unlike any other. London, a booming empire, a restless financial center, a city where fortunes rose and collapsed within hours. Into this chaos walked Nathan Mayer Rothschild, young, ambitious, and completely untested. He arrived with no noble title, no political allies, and no established network. But he carried something far more valuable: his father's vision and the courage to take risks others avoided. London moved faster than any market in Europe. Every day, ships brought new goods, new rumors, and prices that could shake the entire economy. Most merchants reacted to these changes. Nathan wanted to predict them. He watched everything: late ships, scarce goods, broken trade routes, and slowly, he realized a simple truth. If a man could read the market just hours before others, he could rewrite his entire future. Nathan took his first major gamble, financing textile shipments far larger than anything he had handled before. Many expected him to fail, but Nathan wasn't betting on luck. He was betting on information and on the private courier network his family was quietly building. His bold move would soon pay off, but success attracts attention, and one new rival was already watching. While Nathan battled the chaos of London, another brother carried a very different burden. Amschel, the eldest, holding the family line in Frankfurt, the quiet center of the Rothschild world. Frankfurt wasn't glamorous. Not a financial storm like London, not a political furnace like Paris. But it was the core, the point where every message, every risk, every decision eventually returned. Amschel's work was quieter, but heavier. He balanced accounts, coordinated couriers, and kept the entire network stable. Yet beneath that stability, something he never admitted was beginning to trouble him. His brothers were rising quickly, gaining influence, power, recognition. Amschel remained in the background, watching, calculating, fully aware of one truth he carried alone: if Frankfurt ever slipped, the entire family would fall. And soon, a simple letter arriving from Vienna would test him in a way none of them were prepared for. The letter that reached Frankfurt carried a single warning: Vienna was changing. And the brother stationed there, Salomon, was facing pressure none of them expected. Vienna was the heart of the Austrian Empire, a world of protocol, hierarchy, and endless bureaucracy. For an outsider like Salomon, every door was heavy, every favor expensive. Yet he pushed forward. He met officials, studied court politics, and learned to navigate a system designed to keep men like him out. But in the lines of his letter, something he didn't dare write openly was beginning to appear. He reported rising tensions, fragile markets, and whispers of a major financial strain approaching. Amschel understood what that meant. If Vienna shook, the entire network would tremble, and Salomon's next move would determine whether the family expanded or broke. While Salomon faced the tightening world of Vienna, another brother entered a city ruled by elegance and ambition: Paris. And there, the youngest Rothschild, James, was about to rewrite the rules. Paris was dazzling, but ruthless. Fortunes were made at the opera, lost in the salons, and every banker played behind a mask. Sharp-eyed and fearless, James adapted faster than anyone expected. He studied the elites, memorized their rivalries, and learned that influence in Paris wasn't bought with money, but with relationships. Yet behind all the charm, James sensed something deeper, a political tension quietly forming in the background. While others chased prestige, James chased information. And soon, he uncovered a shift in France's finances that no one else was prepared to see. What he did next would pull Paris and the entire Rothschild network into a new level of power and danger. While tensions rose in Vienna and whispers spread across Paris, Nathan in London began noticing something others overlooked: a pattern. London was the empire's information crossroads. Ships arrived first. Rumors traveled faster. Markets reacted within minutes. What seemed like noise to other merchants looked like signals to Nathan. He tracked shipments, compared prices, studied how political news shifted trade. And slowly, a realization emerged. He could predict market movements, not by luck, but by timing. One morning, a delayed ship from Spain triggered a sudden surge in textile prices. Nathan recognized the pattern instantly. He moved before anyone else and doubled his profits in a single day. But success cast a shadow. An older, established banker, feeling threatened, began asking questions about the young Rothschild, and Nathan's next decision would determine whether he became a rising force or a target. As markets tightened across Europe, Vienna felt the pressure first, and for Salomon, this was no longer business. It was survival. Government officials grew cautious. Loans slowed. Whispers of budget shortages spread through the ministries. And every day, Salomon faced the same cold question: can the Rothschilds still deliver? He met with ministers, reviewed accounts, and worked through the nights, trying to predict what was coming. But all signs pointed in one direction. Something inside the Austrian Empire was about to break. Then the blow struck. A major state payment, expected for weeks, failed to appear. Instantly, confidence in Vienna began to crumble. Salomon realized that if he couldn't steady the situation, the family's entire presence in the empire could collapse overnight. And the solution he reached for next was bold enough to reshape the Rothschild reputation forever. With Vienna on the brink, Salomon made a decision no banker of his age would dare to attempt. If the Austrian Empire could not make its payment, he would cover it himself, with Rothschild capital. Officials were stunned. Some doubted him. Others feared what such a gesture meant. But Salomon understood the moment. If he saved the empire today, the empire would remember tomorrow. He drafted the offer overnight, calculating the risks, the political cost, and the fortune he might lose. Then he sent his message to the ministry. The Rothschilds will provide the funds. But behind his confidence lay a terrifying truth. One miscalculation could collapse the entire family network. By morning, Vienna accepted. The bailout stabilized the markets, but it also drew the attention of Europe's most powerful men. And one of them was not pleased. Salomon's bailout echoed across Vienna. Markets calmed, confidence returned. But behind the polished doors of the imperial court, one man watched with growing unease: Clemens von Metternich, the most powerful statesman in the Austrian Empire. Metternich valued one thing above all: control. And a private banker who could stabilize the empire with a single decision was not a development he welcomed. He gathered reports on the Rothschilds, questioned their influence, and studied how one family could shape the fate of nations. What he discovered unsettled him. Rothschild's speed was beginning to rival state power. Metternich crafted his response: test them, pressure them, and remind them who truly ruled Vienna. But in doing so, he set in motion a confrontation neither side could avoid. And the first move would not come from Salomon. While Metternich questioned the Rothschilds in Vienna, Nathan in London was becoming impossible to ignore. London trusted him. Merchants followed his moves. Government officials sought his advice. And every accurate prediction strengthened his image as the man who understood the markets better than anyone. But Nathan wanted more than profit. He wanted influence, the kind that could shift negotiations across Europe. He expanded his courier network, reaching ports and trading hubs faster than his rivals. Information that took others days reached Nathan within hours, and what he learned next shook every major bank in the city. A sudden military report hinted at a looming conflict on the continent. If true, markets were heading straight for chaos. Nathan moved instantly, positioning himself for the turn before anyone else sensed it. But his boldness did not go unnoticed. Someone far more dangerous had begun to watch him. Nathan's rapid market moves sent ripples through London's financial district. Profits rose. Competitors whispered, and in the background, a new observer took interest. He was older, deeply connected, and far more dangerous than a rival banker. A man whose influence reached into politics, intelligence circles, and even foreign courts. To him, Nathan's speed wasn't brilliance. It was a threat. He gathered reports on the young Rothschild, tracked his trades, mapped his courier routes. And the more he learned, the more uneasy he became. How could a single merchant outpace institutions built over centuries? Quietly, he made his move. A discreet meeting with powerful officials, a suggestion that Rothschild influence needed to be contained. Nathan had no idea that someone in the shadows had begun tightening a net around him. And soon, that net would close. The whispers that began in Vienna soon drifted into London's halls of power. Quiet questions, subtle doubts. Officials suddenly wanted to know how Nathan moved so quickly and who supplied his information. Nathan noticed the shift immediately. Meetings felt colder. Letters arrived with unusual delays. Longtime partners hesitated, waiting for approval before acting. Still, Nathan wasn't afraid. He believed influence was earned, not granted. But something felt wrong. Too many eyes were watching him at once. Then came the warning. A trusted contact requested a private meeting, speaking in a low, uneasy voice. "You're being targeted. Someone wants to slow you down." Nathan said nothing, but in that moment, he understood. This was no longer a rivalry, it was a campaign, and the next strike would not be subtle. The warning echoed in Nathan's mind, but he had little time to respond. The first strike came swiftly. A major trading partner, reliable for years, suddenly withdrew from a deal without explanation. Then another hesitated. A third postponed a routine agreement. It wasn't coincidence. It was coordination. Someone was pulling strings. Nathan reviewed letters, messages, market behavior, and the truth became undeniable. He was being isolated, not by traders, but by people with influence far beyond the markets. Still, Nathan refused to step back. He reinforced his network, sent urgent orders to his couriers, and prepared to counter whatever came next. But his opponents were already ahead. A confidential report was on its way to London officials, crafted to damage the Rothschild name itself. And if it landed, everything he had built could shake. The confidential document arrived in London at dawn, sealed, anonymous. Quietly circulated among officials before anyone in the financial district even knew it existed. Nathan never saw the report, but he felt its impact immediately. A routine government meeting was suddenly rescheduled, a proposed contract placed under review, and people who once greeted him warmly now spoke with calculated distance. Something had shifted. Nathan obtained a summary of the accusations, claims that he manipulated markets, influenced foreign policy, and moved money faster than the state could track. This wasn't an attack on his business. It was an attack on his legitimacy. Nathan refused to sit still. He prepared countermeasures, mobilized allies, and readied himself to confront the source. But before he could act, another message arrived. A summons from the highest levels of government. And this time, he could not ignore it. Nathan arrived at the government offices to an atmosphere colder than winter stone. No greetings, no small talk, only a silent escort leading him into a private chamber where senior officials waited. They didn't accuse him outright. They asked questions, carefully measured, heavy with implication. Why did his couriers move so fast? Who supplied him with information? How could one man influence markets across an entire continent? Nathan answered calmly, but he could feel it. This wasn't an inquiry. It was a test of strength. Then the real purpose emerged. A demand. Nathan was ordered to limit his activities, slow his network, and give advance notice of major market moves. An ultimatum disguised as cooperation. And Nathan knew that agreeing would destroy everything he'd built. But refusing would make him a target of the most powerful empire in Europe. Nathan left the chamber with one certainty: he would not obey. Slowing his network meant surrender, and surrender was never an option. He drafted a response, polite but unmistakably firm. The Rothschilds operate independently. The message spread through London's offices. Some called it courage, others called it defiance. But all agreed, Nathan had drawn a line against the empire itself. Hours later, a new notice arrived. Short, cold, unmistakably threatening. Your activities are now under review. Nathan understood. The real battle was only beginning. The notice spread quickly. Nathan's activities were now under review. Within days, the pressure sharpened, permits delayed, transactions questioned. Officials who once welcomed him now observed with guarded distance. Nathan recognized the strategy. They weren't targeting his business. They were targeting his freedom to operate. Still, he held his ground. But the campaign escalated. A new directive circulated through government offices, one designed to restrict Nathan's access to critical financial channels. That night, Nathan received a private message from an unexpected source. Hold your position. Help is moving. Nathan realized someone powerful had entered the fight. While Nathan faced mounting pressure in London, a subtle shift occurred in Vienna. Salomon, informed through discreet channels, recognized the danger instantly. Without announcement or noise, he moved capital, adjusted credit lines, and signaled key officials within the Austrian court. The message was unmistakable. To destabilize a Rothschild was to risk destabilizing an empire, and when empires are threatened, governments listen. Days later, London officials received a note from their counterparts in Vienna. Formal, diplomatic, but firm. Maintain cooperation with the House of Rothschild. Nathan didn't know the details yet, but the pressure around him had begun to ease. The tone in London changed almost overnight. Meetings reopened. Delayed permits were approved. Officials who once kept their distance now spoke with measured respect. Nathan felt the shift. Salomon's move in Vienna had echoed farther than anyone expected. The campaign to isolate him was losing momentum. But Nathan wasn't satisfied. He needed clarity. Who had targeted him and why? His couriers returned with fragments. A name here, a signature there, threads pointing toward a single, powerful circle. Nathan understood. The attack wasn't random. It was coordinated, and the mastermind was still in the shadows. Nathan connected the pieces, the pressure, the isolation, the coordinated silence. This wasn't the work of a single rival. It was a circle of influence, one that feared how quickly a Rothschild could rise. But Nathan was no longer alone. quiet signals from Frankfurt, subtle movements from Paris, a shift in credit from Vienna. The family network was beginning to awaken. London officials sensed it too. And suddenly, the campaign against Nathan lost its courage. He had survived the attack. But more importantly, he now understood the truth. 5 brothers. 5 cities. 1 rising force. And soon, Europe would feel it.